Hi guys, my name is Blake, and my grandpa will be making a series of videos about God and the Bible. And so the other day I asked him a question about God, and my question was, who was the person that made God, or is there any person that made God out there? So he answered the question, and now I understand a whole bunch about God, and I hope to learn more about him. Bye.
Hi, friends. It's me, Bill Bernard. I'm still out here in the cosmos floating around, but thanks for joining me again, and welcome to Equip 412. If you remember from episode 1, we looked at some investigative tools, some preliminaries. We looked at 3 rules of investigation. One was put aside our presuppositions, our biases, as best we can, even though that's very hard to do at times. Use inductive reasoning. Look at the evidence to determine not the possible explanation, but the most reasonable explanation for the evidence. Think circumstantially. Does the available circumstantial evidence point us in the direction of proving the question at hand, or at the very least provide us with a reasonable answer to that question? So, is there anyone out there? Let's briefly review the so-called cosmological argument. And let's see if we can put an answer to the question, is the universe evidence for the existence of God? Does the existence of the universe provide us with the clues that point in the direction of the existence of God? We saw in the last episode that whatever begins to exist must have a cause for its existence. This is consistent with the law of cause and effect. Nothing that has ever begun to exist did so without a cause. Science itself operates on the principle that all events need a cause, which brings us to premise 2. The universe began to exist. Now, is that a clue pointing us in the direction of God's existence? To understand this premise better, I want to look at 4 scientific facts that I believe support this premise that the universe began to exist. Do these 4 scientific facts offer evidence that the universe had a beginning? The first one, the theory of general relativity. The second, the universe is expanding. The third, the second law of thermodynamics. And the fourth, cosmic background radiation. Let's take a look at these. For the first one, we need to go back and take another look at what Albert Einstein discovered over a century ago. Through his general theory of relativity, he discovered that the universe, defined as time, space, matter, and physical energy, had a starting point in history. And since it had a starting point, it's not eternal. It did not always exist. Russian professor of physics and director of the Institute of Cosmology at Tufts University, Alexander Vilenkin, wrote, "It is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe, or in other words, an infinite past. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning." Notice that referring to the proof of the universe having a beginning, he calls it a problem. Is it a problem? Only for atheists who believe that there is nothing that exists outside of the natural. But this is not a problem for theists. Evolutionary astronomer Robert Jastrow, founder and former director of the Goddard Institute for Space Studies at NASA, said, The universe and everything that has happened in it since the beginning of time are a grand effect without a known cause. Then he asks, an effect without a known cause? That is not the world of science. It is a world of witchcraft, of wild events and the whims of demons, a medieval world that science has tried to banish. In other words, he's asking, if everything in the universe has a known cause, how can the universe itself not have a known cause? He's assuming that everything that came into existence has a natural known cause. But when it comes to the existence of the universe itself, when there doesn't seem to be a natural cause for how it came into being, he asks, as scientists, what are we to make of this picture? His conclusion? He says, I do not know. So basically, he has no answer. This is what happens when you rely totally on natural causes, totally ruling out any supernatural cause. Jastrow correctly says there is no natural cause. But when you look outside nature and turn to something beyond nature, then a cause becomes possible. The circumstantial evidence, again, points us to God. Is that a reasonable inference given the evidence? You decide. The second scientific fact that the universe had a beginning is that the universe is expanding. American astronomer Edwin Hubble, after whom the Hubble Space Telescope was named, helped to prove that the universe is expanding. In the 1920s, while conducting new research, he noticed what he called red shifts in light emissions around distant galaxies. He believed these shifts in light were indicators that galaxies were moving away from each other. Although Hubble denied this would prove the universe was expanding, other scientists years later, building on Hubble's research in the 1940s, learned that the universe was in fact expanding. What caused the red shifts? Scientists believe today that the red shift is due to the stretching of light waves as the galaxies move away from us. So what? You ask. What do the red shifts mean, and what does this have to do with the universe having a beginning? A red shift indicates that objects are moving away from us. As an object like a galaxy moves away, the light waves are stretched into longer wavelengths that fall into the red portion of the visible color spectrum. This is an artist's rendition of how the Big Bang may have happened. Except I think the galaxies would most likely have been spreading out in all directions from the initial Big Bang, not just in one direction as indicated here. Now, this may be a little better illustration showing how the universe, in fact, how space itself is expanding out in all directions. It's impossible to illustrate it perfectly, though, since there was nobody there at the time. However, if the universe is expanding, as the red shift now indicates, then it had to have had a beginning point from which the expansion began, meaning the universe and space itself had a beginning. Think of it this way. If you could measure the farthest reaches of the universe today, they would be farther away 100 years from now than they are today, and farther still 1,000 years from now, and so on, because it's expanding. If you could reverse that and measure the farthest reaches of the universe today, those farthest reaches were not that far away 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, and so on. And if you could chart the course of the galaxies all the way back to the Big Bang, we would see everything collapse to where it all began from nothing. Nothing does not mean a super dense point the size of a basketball, or a softball, or tennis ball, a golf ball, a marble, a BB, or even a grain of sand. It means nothing. There was nothing there. There was not even space. And there was no time, no matter, no energy. An expanding universe is evidence that it had a beginning. Additional evidence that the universe had a beginning is the second law of thermodynamics. Now, what's that? Okay, the second law of thermodynamics says the amount of energy within a closed system like the universe will always stay the same, but the amount of usable energy within that system will continually decrease. An open system is one which can allow mass and energy to flow in and through its boundaries unhindered. Imagine a propane tank. Let's use that as an example of our universe, with two pipes attached, one flowing in, one flowing out. In the propane gas, or in our energy, there are micromechanisms, or matter, that require the propane in order to function. In that scenario, both energy and matter are flowing in and out of the tank constantly in an endless supply. Okay, so in our universe, in an open universe, energy and matter are constantly flowing in and out in an endless supply. Now, a closed system, on the other hand, allows the use and transfer of energy within boundaries, but allows no transfer of mass. Now, imagine a tank filled with propane gas, again, our energy, and micro mechanisms, our matter. Okay, let's say this is our universe, a closed system. It has energy, it has matter. In this system, the tank is filled and sealed off, not allowing any further energy or matter from entering or exiting. The micromechanisms depend on the propane to function, but over time they will use up the energy and stop functioning or die. The universe is just such a closed system. Usable energy is necessary for things like growth, productivity, and repair. We need energy to grow and to make things and to repair things. When that usable energy is used up, it is forever converted to unusable energy. The second law of thermodynamics says that the universe is slowly using up the usable energy. There is no way for new, usable energy to be infused naturally into it from an outside source. And notice I emphasize naturally. So ultimately, usable energy within the universe is running down. Given enough time, a very, very long time, usable energy in the universe will run out. What that means is that if the second law of thermodynamics is true, which it has been proven to be so, and if the universe were eternal, then the universe would have used up all of its usable energy a very long time ago. Since we can look at our sun and all the stars in the night sky and see that there still must be plenty of usable energy in the universe, at least for the moment anyway, then the universe cannot be eternal. It had to have a beginning, and it is slowly dying. We've looked at three scientific facts that offer evidence that the universe had a beginning. The first, the theory of general relativity. The second, the universe is expanding. And the third, the second law of thermodynamics, or usable energy is decreasing. The fourth we're going to look at is cosmic background radiation. In 1965, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, two employees of Bell Telephone Laboratories in New Jersey, noticed a mysterious microwave static that was being picked up on their microwave antenna, which seemed to be coming equally from every direction in the sky. And you can see the antenna there behind them. Eventually, they realized this microwave radiation must be afterglow radiation from the Big Bang. Penzias and Wilson went on to receive the 1978 Nobel Prize in Physics for their discovery. Now, using a satellite called the Cosmic Background Explorer, or COBE, this was launched into orbit from 1989 to 1993 with the purpose of gathering data regarding the cosmic background radiation. Once its mission was completed, the data gathered supported the Big Bang. The discovery by Penzias and Wilson in 1965, and later confirmed by the data gathered by COBE, is said to be perhaps the most important cosmological discovery ever since Edwin Hubble had shown that we live in an expanding universe. It was powerful evidence that our universe had indeed begun in a hot, dense state and began expanding and cooling from then till now. Four scientific facts that give us very strong evidence to support the second premise of the cosmological argument. Premise 1, whatever begins to exist must have a cause for its existence. In this episode, we looked at premise 2, the universe began to exist, and we've seen that the scientific facts bear that out. This leads us to the conclusion, therefore, the universe must have a cause for its existence. Now, using our investigative tools, let's ask the following questions. Does the conclusion seem possible? Is that conclusion reasonable? So now all this boils down to a couple of options here. First, no one created something out of nothing, which is the atheist view, that everything just popped into existence. Or someone created something out of nothing, which is the theist view. So going back to our investigative toolbox, which is the most reasonable explanation? As Frank Turek points out, in the second one, you have a miracle and a miracle worker. In the first one, you have a miracle without a miracle worker. If you were investigating this as a crime scene, putting aside your presuppositions as best you could, using abductive reasoning and thinking circumstantially as you gathered the evidence and tried to attach an explanation to that evidence, which one of these questions sounds like the most reasonable explanation to support the evidence? We've looked at evidence regarding the cause of law and effect, which supports the first premise, whatever begins to exist must have a cause for its existence. We also looked at four scientific facts that support the second premise, the universe began to exist, which leads to the conclusion the universe must have a cause for its existence. Now, my 10-year-old grandson asked me, if God created the universe, who created God? That's a very good question. In order to answer that question, let's go back to the first premise. Whatever begins to exist must have a cause for its existence. Now read that carefully. Notice it does not say whatever exists, it says whatever begins to exist. As many have correctly pointed out, God is eternal, which means he has life without beginning or end. There was never a time when God did not exist. So because God has always existed, he does not need a cause. He is the eternal, uncaused cause. If God could be caused to exist, then he would not be God. Whatever created him would be God. But if there was someone who created God, then who created that God? And who created the God before that one? And the one before that God? And the one before that God? And so on for all eternity. You see, if someone was created, then that someone is not God. Everything we see around us had a cause. It's hard for our finite minds to even begin to try to understand the reality and mind of an infinite God. It's hard to get our minds around that, but even though our minds find it extremely hard to grasp the reality of an infinite, uncaused, eternal being, that does not mean that it is illogical to believe in that being. Based on what we've studied in these three episodes, such as I mentioned before, law of cause and effect, the expanding universe, second law of thermodynamics, cosmic background radiation, we know that the universe had a cause. The cause of that universe had to be by someone outside of the universe, outside or beyond time, space, and matter. Now, we naturally sense that something or someone outside of our universe had to cause it into existence. Now, based on abductive reasoning and thinking circumstantially and the facts that we have examined, God is the most reasonable explanation. Psalm 102. Of old you laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you will remain. They will all wear out like a garment. You will change them like a robe, and they will pass away. But you are the same, and your years have no end. Friends, the universe exists. Its existence requires an adequate cause outside of the natural. Call it what you will, but I think it's strong evidence that seems to be remarkably like the God of the Bible, Yahweh. So we've taken a look at the cosmological argument, and next time we'll continue our exploration of the question, is there anyone out there, by examining another argument for the existence of God, known as the fine-tuning argument. If you'd like to learn more about this and study the cosmological argument yourself, please check out the resources and links page at equip412.com, where you'll find links to apologetics websites, as well as some excellent books by a variety of apologetics authors. I hope you'll use these resources to really dig into your own study on these topics. Also, please subscribe to Equip 412 while you're there. And while you're at it, check out 2 free chapters of my new book, Be the Difference. It contains lessons for becoming a no-compromise 21st century difference maker in God's kingdom. And just a reminder, if you found us through Facebook, please click like and share. Follow us on Facebook. Once again, I sincerely thank you for watching this episode today. I hope it's helping you, and I pray you will continue on with us for further episodes. As always, please keep your comments courteous and respectful. And don't forget to join us for the next episode of Equip 412. Until next time, be prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. Friends, may you have a blessed week. See you soon.